So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us Gavin Howarth, who's Chief Executive Officer at Howarths. So, Gavin, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Howarths, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, no problem. I'm delighted to be here. So, Howarths, we've been going 23 years. We work with around 600 SME businesses. Some
Wow.
employ three or four staff. The biggest employs about 700 retained. Um, and we work across three areas. So, employment law, which is essentially if you employ people, there's going to be fires every now and then. So
Yes.
help us put them out quickly and efficiently so we don't end up stood in front of an employment tribunal judge.
Yes.
That's what our employment law team are working on there. We have our health and safety team, and that's helping businesses stay compliant with the Health and Safety at Work Act and associated legislation. And then our HR growth team, which are either on site supporting businesses with the likes of investigations, grievances, disciplinaries, but mostly helping businesses in 2026 build high performance cultures. So
Brilliant.
that's when a business is starting to ask questions like, how do we recruit better? What's our employer brand proposition like to the market? How do we induct better and onboard better? How do we performance manage more effectively, etc.
Brilliant.
So there are three kind of service specialisms, if you like, across that 600 clients, generally in the north of England. But we have recently just worked at a PLC in London, and there's 38 of us in total. And very finally, we also have our foundation, the Howarths Foundation, who supports
Yes.
those who are homeless get back into employment.
Brilliant.
My dad runs the foundation as the CEO, and we
Brilliant.
might touch on the family story.
Yes.
Um, and Howarths sends a proportion of our profits to the foundation each
Brilliant.
month, more if we can at the end of the year to support that endeavour.
Wonderful, and we must talk more about that. That's really wonderful, and really interesting what you say, because as you say, um, these things are so important for, especially for growing businesses. Funny enough, I literally had a conversation with a client this morning um, about growth and about managing, and the need for the sort of things that you offer. It's because for me, it's like if we're growing and growing fast, we're likely to have more and more of these challenges. Um, you know,
Yeah,
just by dint of the fact that when you recruit the first sort of four, five, six recruits, it's probably people or certainly build a great relationship with, and the likelihood of having a problem is perhaps a little bit less. But as we grow and scale, we're not going to have the personal relationship with the team as much as we would like. So, being ahead of the game's got to be really important, I would imagine.
yeah, absolutely, Chris. I mean, based on the last, I suppose, 15 years of working with so many SME businesses, I think businesses go on a similar trajectory. When you start out, as you'll know better than me, it's sales, it's marketing, it's cash flow, it's survival. And at
Yes,
that point in time, from a people perspective, generally it's as long as I don't end up in employment tribunal, that'll do me for now.
yes, absolutely.
And compliance is the right place to start as well. I'll say to
Yep,
business owners all the time, there's no point talking about a fancy employee engagement survey if you haven't got contracts of employment.
yep,
So let's start where we are to begin with. So businesses tend to start there, which is the right place to start. But again, as you'll know, as businesses grow and you maybe employ 10 staff, 15, 20, 25, and you start going through the levels, the proactive side of HR becomes a very relevant and very important question. You know,
yep,
again, how do we attract the best talent? How do we keep it? What values do we stand for, and how are we
yeah,
applying them? How are we performance management? How, most importantly, are we increasing engagement levels to increase productivity? Now, of course, that's all important when you're smaller, but it's needs must at that size,
yes,
and we've been through that journey ourselves. But as you get bigger, and I would say, and I know I would say this, the earlier you start answering those
yeah,
questions, the better.
yeah,
And I think particularly in 2026, because I think the winners are those businesses that prioritize
yeah,
engagement and culture.
yeah, yes,
With
100%.
more discerning workforce, people want different things. If you want the best talent in your business, you've got to put effort into that.
I couldn't agree more. One of the things I've come to realize in doing what I do is I work with businesses and I say, well, look, most businesses as standard will have a client attraction and retention policy, marketing, client delight. We need to attract the right clients, we need to keep the right clients. But it's
Yeah,
exactly the same for employees and team members now. We need to be putting the same effort and investment into finding the best people because it is more of an employees market nowadays, and employees, they want more than just a job and a salary. They want something more than that, and we've got to attract them. But having got them, we need to keep them too, because
yeah,
it's so easy for them. If we're not delivering to them what they expect, they're likely to look elsewhere.
absolutely right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And but I often feel it can be given lip service
Yeah,
and not the importance and focus that it perhaps needs, and really sat right at the boardroom table. In the
100%.
same way we're talking about finances, marketing, and tracking the metrics on those categories of business. And again, I know I would say this, but the people category and culture should also sit at the boardroom table and also be measured and talked
Yeah,
about in the same way, if not above. Because if you work on the adage that it's the people that make a business, and I'll often say it doesn't matter how shiny your CNC machine is, or flashy your website, or posh your premises are. If the people don't turn up on a Monday,
yeah,
there isn't a business.
yeah,
So, how much effort are we as a business and as a collective? How much do we believe in that, and how much effort are we putting into it?
yeah. That makes perfect sense. So, just in terms of obviously you've quite a broad range of size of business, but what makes a perfect client for you? What makes the really great clients that you work so well with? What would be the commonalities of that?
I I think I've learned over the years, Chris, that if you are if you're there on values, you're halfway there in a relationship, whether that's with
Yep,
clients, suppliers, uh, colleagues joining the business, whoever. So I think a values fit is important. We
yep,
have very clear set of values at Howarth: graft, together, heart, and grit. Um, Four values, each
love
with a
it,
value statement and each with four behaviors aligned to the values.
love it.
And that's embedded across recruitment, performance management, relationship with suppliers, decisions at board level, etc. So I think in terms of a client, if we fit on values, then we're halfway there. And it's a little bit like the law of attraction, I think. The clearer on who you are as a business,
Yep,
which isn't an overnight process. You'll know better than me. Who are we? What do we stand for? What do we want to stand for? The clearer you are about that in the market, then you tend to attract clients and colleagues
yes,
who have the same values. And I think once you've
yep,
got that, you're halfway there, and you can build then the commercials on top. And um, but you have to stand for something. And I try and do that a lot on LinkedIn. And some people will read the content I put out there and probably think that is nonsense. But but I don't mind that either. Or the approach that Gav puts out there, I don't quite relate to. That's okay because it's a good disqualification. Other people see
yes,
it and think, you know what, that's right up my street. Um, but standing for something rather than
brilliant,
nothing. So sorry, that is a
brilliant.
very roundabout way, but I think then you end up attracting the right type of clients based on
Yep,
values. Um, and then more specifically, I think, businesses in the range of, say, employing 20 people up to about 250, very SME,
yep,
is our sweet spot, really. I think
yep.
that's where we can add the most value.
There are, and as you said, doing what I do, there are some really big differences between that owner managed SME type business, certainly up to let's say 50 to 100.
Yeah.
Then once you get past that, it's very, very different. I was talking to somebody the other day, and that I think you've got a number of quite large, what became quite large businesses, and I remember going through the process of my first business. We got up to sort of 100 and I think about 110 permanent with another sort of 40 or
Wow.
50 contract staff, and I said that the first 20, you knew them, you knew their wives, you knew their kids, you knew pets, you know everything, and then sort of 25 up to about 50, you know them, but you probably and their wife maybe, but don't not much more. And then I remember the day I can't remember how many people we had when I said, "Who's that?" You know,
Yeah.
and that's wrong of me. I have to say, in hindsight, I realised that I shouldn't have ever got to a point where I literally didn't know who the new employee was. But there happened to be another office down south, but that's neither here nor there. But it's really interesting that it's very difficult to maintain the level of personal relationship as a business grows. I think we've got to do our best to do that, and that's where values come in. But yeah, it is quite a different thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sort of 2 points on that. One, to relate to the point you said, I've come across that recently actually in the guise of change, the subject matter of change. And you're right, I mean, I felt it in our business when we were smaller, say six, seven of us. If you wanted to make change in the business, that was relatively
Yes.
quick, easy to do. Like,
Yep.
let's make a change. Let's do this new process. Let's introduce this service and roll it out. It happened quickly. It was very smooth. Everyone, easy to rally the troops, etc. Even now, at our stage of, say, 37, 38, if we want to make change in the business now you're more talking about timescales, implementation, a communication strategy. Um, changed. It's changed completely.
Yes.
So the challenges, and of course, as you get bigger, that change piece becomes even more complicated. You in fact employ people who are specialists in change to help you
Yes.
do it.
Yep.
Um, so you're right. The challenges become absolutely different at each level, and adapting to that is not always easy.
Yeah.
And the second point I was going to make is I agree totally, and I almost see that as arguably my number one job as CEO of Howarths, particularly a very values-led family business, and particularly being second generation, and lots of second generation leaders I think will relate to this is being able to respect and pay the correct homage to what's gone and what's been and the foundations of where the business has come from, and in my case, what my parents have put in place. And at the same time, looking forward, innovating, changing
Yep.
the way we do things and taking the business on, um, is the trick really of a second generation
Yeah.
lead, particularly in a family business. And then also as you get bigger, and it doesn't have to be a family business now, but maintaining those values and that in our case the wording we would use is heart, maintaining that as you grow. And in your down to earth example of knowing the names of people's partners and children, etc., it's a big challenge, but it's,
Yes.
for us at least, really really important and
Yes.
almost my number one job going forward.
Brilliant. Interesting enough, we had a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a very big influencer in the US.
Yes,
There's 50 million followers. So you either know him or you don't. But we had
I
him
do.
at our national conference this year. Oh, sorry, last year now, I should say. And he had really interesting things he was saying. But one thing he said is the job of a CEO and the owner of a business is to spend an hour at least an hour a month with each employee, and
Yeah.
if as long as you can, and really still maintain that connection. I do think that's where, as you clearly identified, where values and a clear values and
Yeah.
heart statement comes in, because that's where we start to put the culture into something that's systemized that people can connect with. But he was still saying, try and spend as much time as you can with your team, and obviously it's great to see that you see that as one of your key roles. Because
Well, yeah, I think
yeah,
that's
go on.
really interesting actually. And I've had a little bit of reflection on that over this Christmas break from 2025 into 2026. And, part of the role of a CEO is certainly to face outwards from the business, to
Yes.
wave the flag, go on podcasts, get on stages, get in rooms with people you can do business deals with, outward facing. But if you're not careful, you can do a lot of that to the detriment of the inward facing
Yep.
part. And I
Yep.
think my reflection over this last year has been certainly going into 2026. I'd actually like to face inwards a little bit more
Brilliant.
and spend a little bit more time, a bit like what Gary said there at your national conference, with the team and helping them develop, and
Yes.
reach the top of Maslow's hierarchy, if you like, of
Yep.
self-actualization. But you can't do that if you're just constantly facing outwards. But you've
Yeah.
got to find the right balance of the two, really.
I couldn't agree more. And it's interesting you said something earlier, which was about a match of values.
Mm,
Because I often I really believe quite fundamentally that you can have a good relationship with a match of goals. You both want to achieve the same thing. It
yeah,
really can. But you get great relationships with a match of values when you
yeah.
both believe the same things are important, because then everything else sorts itself out, I think. You can sort of go a certain way with goals, but it's all about what we both believe to be important.
I, I totally agree, Chris. Yeah, and I suppose it depends what you're in business for.
Yeah,
Howarths is a second generation, 23-year-old family business, and we're in it for the long term. So therefore, you make long-term decisions and act long-term. I suppose if you've got private equity investment and you're looking for an exit in 3 years, are you that bothered about matching on values because you've got numbers to get through because you've got a particular business aim to
great
exit?
point.
Then it might be a different proposition. So,
Yeah, great point.
horses for courses in a way, but for us, certainly values led, long term,
Love
uh,
it.
strategic.
Brilliant. So let's look backwards for a little bit. If you tell us a bit more about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one, that'd be great.
Okay, yes. So going way back, but I'll be quick.
It's
Um,
okay.
my dad's from a one-parent council house in Leeds. He joined the police when he was 19 and did 30 years in the police until he was
Wow.
49. Had a
Wow.
good police career, detective, worked in Hong Kong and Ireland, etc. And then in the last 4 years of his police career, went back to school and got an A level because he didn't have any of those, and then did a part-time law degree on a Tuesday and Thursday night when me and my brother were younger. And then when he retired from the police at 49, he set Howarths up from the front room at home when he was 50.
Amazing.
He wouldn't mind me saying that he's not great with numbers, but mum's savvy on that side. So
Brilliant.
got mum, Helen involved in the business, and the two of them set off from the family front room in Cleckheaton, which is where we still are now, 23 years later.
Yep.
They only still live a mile away. Um, Set off from the front room and off they went. And you can tell, obviously, I'm very proud of that because, and mum and dad would say this, they didn't have loads of idea what they were doing. They'd never been in business before. They didn't have any contacts in business. My dad was 50, mum slightly younger. So not a typical way to start a business, and clearly some hurdles there. It was very much one computer, yellow pages, and let's see what we can do. So fast forward a little bit, I went off to university. I did law at Leeds University,
Right.
which I loved. Um, the business started in 2003. I went to university in 2004. People often ask, was it always the plan to join the family business? And not necessarily, because neither mum and dad or me knew what would happen, whether mum and
Yeah.
dad would make it through the first year. And you know what
Yep.
it's like at that stage, very much survival and
Yes.
£100 in, £80 out. So who knew at that stage? But as the years progressed, I then did my 3 years at Leeds, did my training legal practice course, and then did my training contract at what was then Hammond's, now Squire Patton Boggs Solicitors.
Yep.
And then just as the years progressed, it became more of an option. Me and my dad had a conversation, and then I finished my training contract and then joined the family business in 2010.
Yep.
And then fast forward the journey then, I've been running the business for the last 12 years. And then 4.5 years ago, I bought mum and dad out
Right.
of the business. Um, and my dad's still involved in the business. He's 72 in
Brilliant.
March. And he's the CEO of our charity, Howarths
Yes.
Foundation, which is based from the same building.
Yep.
So we still see each other every day.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And I know, I really, what a great story all round. I mean, starting a business at 49, did you say? Or
50,
how
yeah, my
50,
dad, yeah.
50, I mean, that's quite a big thing to you from a career as an employee, because you'll know yourself that sort of mindset of being a business owner is quite different to mindset of working for somebody else. And I mean, and I always say I work with some really high. I have worked with some really high performing people that prefer to stay in employment, if that makes sense. Is they're not
Yeah.
owners of the business, great MDs, great CEOs, because there is just something about a mindset that's slightly different to working
Yeah.
for somebody to than working for yourself. What a great story, and your story of taking the business through, and is I mean, pre all of that, is this what you foresaw for yourself, or did you have other plans when you were a kid?
Well, apart from the one that everyone has of playing football for England and
Brilliant.
um, that type of stuff, um, yeah, I think it was, to be honest, Chris, in the end. I mean, I did business at A level and really liked it. And then law, I didn't choose law because mum and dad started out in that in the business. Although dad was in the police, it's obviously a legal element to it,
Yes.
um, but I really liked that as well. So yeah, as time went on, I think it became a clearer picture in my mind that business leadership would be something that I'd love to do.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I think it'd be probably worth just, if you don't mind, just get your views on the differences. This is both from obviously your own personal background, but also the businesses you work with. What would you say the key differences between family developed businesses and businesses that don't have that family element? Is there anything significant you'd say is different between the two?
Yeah, I think so. I'd say generally speaking, family businesses tend to be values led, whether they're written down or not. I think that
Yes.
strong values, long term, custodian type mindset, um, don't trust easily,
Yeah.
and don't let people in easily, I don't think.
Yeah.
But once you are in, it's a long term
Yes.
relationship,
Yes.
providing you meet your side of the bargain. Um, Whereas I think you might say non-family businesses or businesses that are in it for something different, if you like. And I sort of
Yes.
alluded to it earlier with the example that I gave. But if you
Yes.
may be less values led, slightly more commercial, looking
Yep.
for shorter term outcomes. Um, and if that's the kind of premise upon which you work, then your decision making and your
Yeah.
actions are clearly going to be different because you're
Yeah.
aiming for a different end
Yes.
goal. Um, so yeah, that's generally where I'd see the differences. But it's hard to box businesses and
Oh yeah.
very much
Yeah.
everything in between as well.
I couldn't agree more. It's just good because you've got that view from both your personal
Yeah,
situation, but also working with so many businesses as you do. I'm sure
yeah.
you do that. So looking again, still looking back for now, what as you've grown the business, what are some of the biggest issues and challenges you've had to overcome, Gavin?
How long have we got? Well, it's this. I mean, there's so many, isn't there? There's so many. I think particularly that journey up to £1 million revenue. I don't know if you remember that journey from your business previously, but that is very hard journey, I would say. I
Yes.
think it's two steps forward, one step back. It feels like you're up to your waist in thick mud. Um, it's a real trudge, I think, that bit, and it's very hard work. And having passed that now and reached the level we're at, I'm hoping, touch wood, that there's still many challenges, but they're different. But scaling feels slightly different to those
Yeah.
very, very early days when you're just trying to get the service right, the product right, you're trying to get the right people, you're trying to build the culture. Cash flow can often still be an issue at that point, and you're
Yeah.
talking about money a lot. Have we got that money in? Can we? And it's still a relevant conversation, of course, but it's just different because you have a little bit more buffer as you go
Yeah.
on, and um, so yeah, there have been challenges. I think now some of the bigger challenges are sort of, I mentioned it before, but things like system implementation. When you're going through the early days, get a little bit of software over here that helps, a little bit of software over here that helps. And then suddenly you wake up one day and turn around and you've got 4 or 5 different
Yes.
systems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're now, right, if we're going to get to the next level, we need to think about how all these speak to each other. Do we have the process flows between them? Do we go for an all new system? But talking about the change piece, that's no longer quick and easy.
Yeah.
Things become more expensive because of the amount of people you've got. So the challenges change, but yeah, there's been lots of them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to talk about learning in a second. It's interesting what you said though, because as you say, that first million is critical. And look, I spoke to somebody 2 days ago, and no, sorry, last week, and I was saying I remember one of the two key reasons I do what I do, especially for SME businesses that are in that sort of 250, 500 million up to 5-10 million, but one of the reasons I do that is because I remember when we got to about 10 million, we started to pique the interest of the sort of large management consultancies, the KPMGs and these
Yeah.
sorts of guys that were, oh, we might be able to help you now. And I remember thinking, well, yeah, that's nice, but where were you when we were 100 grand trying
Yeah.
to get 250? Because that was the hard
Yeah.
stuff. This
Yeah.
bit now is a bit more about, I always say sort of 5 million is where you start to go from internal leverage of getting the systems right, getting the business right, to external leverage, looking at
Mm,
acquisition, looking at strategic partnerships.
mm.
It's almost like a change point. But it's like though that first, you rightly say, that first million is the hardest, and that's when we really need support. So that's why a big reason I do what I do, and I'm guessing that's part of the reason that you focus on SME businesses as you do. Because it
Yeah.
is, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a different type of challenge, but I think the hardest bit is that. And so whether it is from the challenges or other areas, what are the biggest learnings or tips you could share about growing a successful business going?
Yeah, good question. Well, I suppose I would say this, but going back to some of the theme we were talking about earlier, I think becoming clear on who you are
Yep,
as early as possible, I
yep,
think is important. Um, I don't know if this is common or not, but the way we've always worked is to have a vision out there, over there, of where we want to go.
yep,
So if you're a boat on the sea, clearly you've got to have some aim. Otherwise, you're just aimlessly going,
yeah,
just bobbing around on the waves. So we have this sort of lighthouse over there of where we aim for, this grand vision, if you like, which may take anything between, in our case, we've actually mapped this out as sort of 9, 12, 19 years
brilliant,
long-term vision.
brilliant.
But then once that's established, then it's we work really in a year, over 4 quarters over a year. So you kind
Great,
of have the big picture over there, the macro, and then you're right
great.
back down to the next quarter. Um, so we've never really had a 3 to 5 year business plan per se. I guess maybe they've become less relevant post-COVID, particularly.
Yes,
Um, and the speed of change, and in the world
yeah,
we are now with technological change, so we've always had the grand vision out there, and then the year split up
yep,
into 4 quarters, and we attack that.
brilliant.
So maybe that might help people, but I think the people piece particularly is important. And then I think brand and storytelling, and finding the happy medium between your lead generation, which obviously you need business in, it needs to convert into cash, you need that in your account. But at the same time, I think it's very important to be building the brand,
Yes,
especially if you're in for the long term, again, the medium to long term.
yep,
Because reputation and brand are what's going to see you through over years.
yes,
The lead generation often, you switch on and off, and the more money you put into it, it can produce results short term, and you do need to do that. But I think it's important that you tell a story, that you have a narrative, you build a brand, because that's what engages
yeah,
strategic partners, clients, colleagues alike.
yeah.
So I think those would be the first things that come to mind for me.
Brilliant, brilliant, great. Yeah, yeah, great, great, great advice. And I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Oh, Dad, I'd say firstly,
Yeah,
in the early days when I joined, if there's anyone from a family business listening, you'll know that that journey isn't always smooth. Um, a couple of slam doors and crosswords, and as you go on, but I think that's maybe young bull and old bull finding the way. Um, but Dad, definitely. I mean, I learned so much in those early days from Dad. Just age-old lessons about life and business, you know, simple things that have been around forever, but that I'll never forget and implement now, and strike while the iron's hot. When you're talking about sales, for example, things like that, you just never
yep,
forget that type of thing. So Dad particularly has been a great mentor and continues to be. In fact, only last week did I say, can I have a quick word and ran something by him.
Brilliant.
Um, and then our accountants in the early days were really useful. And I think you go on a journey with accountants, and
Yep.
you'll know, Chris, I'm sure you did with your business, but I can think of a couple of people within accountancy firms, again, working with a lot of SMEs and particularly useful. And then from a personal point of view, I mean, during my 20s, particularly before the three kids came along, and I've got zero time now, I read a lot. Not
Right.
business books, yes, but also life books.
Yep.
And I listened to hours and hours and hours of podcasts and audiobooks and really tried to, in that decade between 20 and 30, really focused on trying to learn and improve
Brilliant.
and try and understand life as much as possible. And I think it stood me in good stead going forward.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, coming on to which, can you recommend any great books or podcasts for about business or life in general? What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, favorite. So many, but let me try and
I
with
know it's
some.
a hard question. Yeah.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Brilliant.
Richest Man in Babylon. I really
Yes.
like. Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Things. I think it's called Richard Carlson.
Yes.
Um, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Love that book. What else have we got? Tools of Titans. I really like as well. I think I've got that on my shelf still.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss. Good
Yes.
to Great is also a great book.
Great
Uh,
book.
Yeah, but
Well,
I think if I were to try and rank them all, if I were going to start somewhere, I think it's Think and Grow Rich,
yeah.
That book on mindset. I mean, you could reread that almost monthly and you'd learn
I,
something new from it.
I would agree, and it was written in 19. I think I think it was published in the 30s. Started writing it in
Yeah,
the 20s. Still as relevant. There's a few little tweaks and things
yeah.
there that aren't quite as appropriate to the modern world, but still so relevant to today. There is, even in a technological world that we're in, as you rightly say, and it's fascinating, brilliant book. Uh,
Yeah, and I as well, I think when you're looking for inspiration, whether it be in books, podcasts, anywhere, for us, I say to the team a lot, I want Howarths to be in a market of one. So when people say, "Oh, do you compete against?" Well, no one really that does it
really,
like us. I think that's got to be the aim. And if
yeah,
that's the aim, yes, having some knowledge of your industry, I think is important. You have to look left and right at the competitors every now and then and have some awareness of that. But I also think you want to look really left and really right into completely different sectors,
yeah,
completely different cultures, completely different ways of thinking and try and bring that into the business to create something new, unique. I think part of the job of a CEO is a creative endeavor building a business.
yes,
I think if you are going to become something unique and in a market of one, you do well to take inspiration from as far left and as far right as possible. So I think when you're reading, it doesn't have to be business books.
no,
I read a lot of non-fiction as well because you come across certain passages, certain pages, certain bits of a storytelling, and it just alights something in your mind about, in my case, Howarths, and you bring it in and you adapt and change. And I think that's the only way you create something unique.
brilliant, love it, absolutely love it. Funny enough, I love films, and I watch, a lot of films, and I pick so much things that I bring back into what I do. Whether it's a motivational phrase or just various things, and I just love it. And you bang on, and it's interesting actually because quite often. Um, I'll meet businesses and they'll say, "What do you know about my business? What do you know about my industry?" And one thing I'm lucky enough to say, because I'm a part of the Action Coach group, is I guarantee we'll have worked with a business like yours at some place. And so I can get access to that information. But I also say, do you know what's great about me not knowing about your business? Is I'll ask better questions because I'll ask them, well, that's interesting. Can you just tell me the background behind why you do that? And it'll be, well, we started doing it in 1970 with it's like sometimes you don't have, if you don't understand, and that's what looking into, as you said, left and right as far as you can, there's no context of this industry to reference to, and that's great because that's where
I
innovation happens.
100%, yeah. In fact, I go as far to say when I receive emails or contact from, let's say, marketing agencies that say, we've helped others in your industry, let us help you. Being totally honest, that I'll just delete those because
Brilliant. Yeah.
I don't want someone to come in and try and apply something to Howarths which someone else in the industry has
Yeah.
done. Because then you're at risk of becoming a mold.
Yep.
So actually, I would favour people who have like, oh,
Brilliant.
I've worked in the creative industry for the last 30 years. I'm like, right, I'm interested. What could you bring to us, the legal sector? Let's have a conversation because
Love it.
something exciting could come out of that.
Yeah, love it. It's really, yeah, absolutely love it. I often say one of the things we do is we position ourselves as generalists and like to introduce specialists, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
People like yourself. And I often say to people, look, I can take you through principles of marketing, marketing messages. Let's get things like culture because, and I normally say is culture, the culture and your values proposition should be at the fundamental of your marketing. It's like who you
yeah,
are.
yeah,
So all I say is, look, I could recommend, let's say, some good marketing people, but you've got to find the right ones for you. But what I absolutely is really important is the first thing they're going to suggest to you is they do a complete values a value proposition assessment so they understand who you are. Doesn't matter, at that point, I think you sort of pretty much said yourself, it really doesn't matter at that point what you do. It's more
yeah,
important who you are, what you stand for.
yes, yeah,
And when we get that out, then we're just overlaying it onto your particular industry. I mean, go back to books. A great book is Start with Why, Simon Sinek. I don't know if you're
yes,
familiar with that,
yeah,
which is that whole purpose of people may be interested in what you do, they might be interested in how you do it, but they're mostly interested in why you do it. And I think
yes.
if you get that right, you're sorted. So, any favourite from the learnings you've had? And you said, and I agree with you. There's lots of sources. Any favourite quotes or sayings that you catch yourself using on a regular basis?
Yeah, the favorite one is probably we're not here for a long time, we're here for a good time.
That's a good.
I do like that one. I ended my wedding speech with that 10 years ago, and we've got it on our wall at home.
Love it.
Um, yeah, I think it just sums up the essence of it. We ain't got long, have we, Chrissy? The truth of it is, um, and
Yeah,
business is hard. It's stressful. It takes a lot of us. There's a lot on our shoulders. You've got to accept that, but you've also got to have some fun with it. You've got to enjoy
yeah,
it. You want to build strong relationships, empower people. It's got to have lots of meaning and fun to it as well. And I think it's just a good
agreed.
reminder. Um,
No, I completely agree, Gavin. Yeah, we really aren't here for very long when you think about it, well, it's interesting. This will take a long. If you have a good memory, if you remember this for your kids when they get older. But somebody said to me not that long ago, 9 months ago, and I thought it was funny because I've got a 19-year-old and a 23-year-old.
yeah,
23-year-old's totally sorted. 19-year-old's traveling at the moment, having a great time. Um,
cool.
but somebody said when we're talking about plans and grow, we try. I want to encourage her just to not to, and she's not worried about where she's going to end up. It's just enjoy, let's focus on
Yeah,
enjoying, and we'll find the way forward. But when somebody said to me, they said, "Look, if you're an adult at 18, then at 19 you're a 1 year old adult. So being expected to know everything or know where you want to go, it's just nuts. So just
yeah,
accept that in your 20s you're just a 5 to 10 year old adult, and therefore give yourself a break. You know,
I like that.
I just think it's
Yeah,
cool because I think we put too much. I mean, as I say, my eldest is just so sorted, and she's already bought a house with her fiance. Great job in the civil service. She knows where she's headed. The other one's not particularly perplexed about not where she's going, but she'll find a different way. But it's like it doesn't matter, even if they both didn't know, or it's just giving themselves time. I think.
oh, definitely. And if Chris, we should say if there's anyone listening of that age, like I don't know if you're the same. I'm 39 now, I'll be 40 this year, and been doing this job 50, in this business 15 years, and this job 12 years. We don't know what we're doing. Like the more we go on, we realize like there's days I wake up and I'm like, do I know what I'm doing in this job? Can I do this job still? Like, have I got what it takes? And the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. Those doubts and insecurities don't go away. They're there throughout. And am I doing the right thing? Like, is this the job for life for me? Um, where's the next level? you don't gain that much more answers going forward, do you? But you do it anyway. So maybe there's some solace in that for someone younger.
I think so. I had a couple of great conversations last week about imposter syndrome. Not and the two things that I pull from that is one is, and I've realised this over time, is that probably 50 or 60, well, probably at least 60% of the people I have interviewed for this have talked about imposter syndrome in some manner, not knowing,
Yeah,
and I said, well, if you accept those numbers, whatever it's 60 or 50 or 100, or it's probably more, that means if we're all worried about what other people think of us, they're not. They're thinking about what other people think of them. So
yeah,
if there's a lot of energy taken up about, am I good enough? Could I do? And if we just got rid of it and just said, yeah, look, we just, we have our faults, but we're doing a good job. It would be a lot easier, at least. That would be the key thing. But the other one that I picked up from Stephen Bartlett, the Diary of a CEO guy, is he had a great take on imposter syndrome, and he said, I love imposter syndrome because it means I'm in the right room and I'm probably going to learn something. And
exactly.
I just thought that's so cool because it's okay, and I think, as I say, a lot of people still have those challenges. And if it's common for everybody, then let's all just forget it and just worry about, just cracking on, I think. Um,
Exactly. We're humans, aren't we? We're not robots. We're human
Absolutely.
beings. So we
Yep.
feel fear, we feel nervousness, we feel scared of what the future might be and whether we can continue to carry this weight and all. Like, it's natural. I think step one is the vulnerability to be honest about being a human.
Yep.
Accept that as a truth, and then you can crack on after that.
Brilliant. Perfect. And just final on the sort of learning front, what would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, Gavin?
Good question. What have I learned about myself? Probably that I'm more resilient than I might have given myself credit for. Um, I've gone through so much personal growth over this last 12, 15 years, an amazing amount, more than I probably would have expected actually. But I feel like the levels of which you can go up as a human being are just endless, really. And there's
Yep.
always another rung on the ladder and another opening of enlightenment um. But yeah, I probably learned more resilient than I thought, and I probably think some of the skills which I don't know if this sound the wrong way, but some of the skills which I would have assumed that were common and not actually. You start to see your kind of special sauce, if you like, as you get a little older.
Yes.
Um, you start to think, oh, actually, not everyone does this, or not
Yeah.
everyone can do this, or not everyone sees it in that way, and there's a value to that. But it takes you a while to realize that because from your perspective, you think, oh, it's common, everyone thinks that, like there's nothing
Yeah.
special about that. So you start to learn what really is in your lane and what your special talents are, I think. And then the job is,
Yes.
I think, to leverage those as much as possible. Because then and I
Absolutely.
try to do that with the team as well, because then it feels like you're in your lane and it's not work.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely, and we do a lot of work with this with owners and their teams because I think one of the things that hold people back is a few things with this. So I think it was Brian, I think it was Brian Tracy talked about the most successful individuals and teams are those that spend most of their time doing the three things they really love and they're really good at
Yeah,
and just move towards that. And a lot of our sort of delegation process and strategy and time recovery is around just say, look,
yeah,
we'll pick those things and we'll delegate everything else. And I think the challenge is in that situation is what we find is people believe that if I don't like it, somebody else won't, whereas
yeah,
somebody else definitely will. They can't wait.
yeah,
Um, and it's a profitable strategy. People want us to do the stuff we're really good at because
yeah.
that's the stuff that will inspire them wherever we are in the organization. But certainly as the leader, if we're focusing on the things we're really good at, then we will be inspiring to others. And I think
I
it's it,
know. Yeah, I
but it's
totally agree. And I think it's people believing that you can sort of have the best of both worlds as well,
yes,
and allowing yourself to have that.
absolutely,
I think, we talk about it a lot when we're talking about business cultures. It's really, I'd say utopia is top line revenue, bottom line profit, return to shareholders, yes, of course,
Yep.
we're a commercial organisation.
Yep.
And though, a great place to work, high retention, and a
Yeah.
queue of people outside the door wanting to work there. So it's kind of profit and joy together. You're like, no way, you can't have both of those, surely. Like that ain't possible. I'm like, it is possible. Like it's the best deals, as you'll know better than me, Chris, are win-win,
Yeah.
where both sides of the table win. It's not a zero-sum game as a winner and a loser. It's a win-win, and I think that's the business can win, the individual can win also. And I think
Absolutely.
when the individual is in a position where they're in a job they love, doing three things like you say, which is right in line with them, and therefore it doesn't feel like work, and they're like, oh, this is actually good, and they're earning a good salary because they're adding to the
Yes,
business.
absolutely.
The business is commercially doing well. It's almost like you can have it all, um, but you have
It,
to work at it.
it's you've got to work in it, but work at stuff that you love. So it's like
Yeah,
it's okay. But I think that's where things like you know either guilt or a belief that suddenly if everything's brilliant, it's all going to fall to bits. It's that's part of the human conditioning, and it's actually saying no, it won't. Actually, it'll be better. It won't be it won't be worse. But it's interesting enough. The second reason and more important reason that I became a business coach at the start was because my too many people, and my first business was very challenging, as well as being very successful, it was very challenging,
mm,
was the belief, I think, among most business people that I've got to go through a very difficult period to then become successul. So, the
yeah,
idea that I'll put my life on hold for 10 years and hopefully the millions will turn up at the end. Well,
yeah,
no, no, no. From my perspective, if everyone in our business and our team, especially me, or especially you, or whoever it is enjoying it and having a great
yeah,
time, then we're certainly going to be more happier. That's fundamental.
yeah,
Probably, if we're happier, we're going to be more effective, which makes us more profitable, and we'll probably get
yeah.
there faster because we're all focusing on the stuff we're good at. So it's absolutely the right thing to enjoy it now, not just to put it off and hopefully enjoy it later. Um,
Yeah, 100%. It's a virtuous circle, isn't it? But I
yes,
think you're right. What stops that? And I think, to be honest, Chris, without going too deep, this is some of the personal growth that I've gone on as a leader and a CEO over the last 12 years as well. Is some of those deepest held beliefs and stories you tell yourself, and I think really you're talking about self-esteem and self-worth. Whether you've got to believe that you are worth it, if you like,
yes,
and that
mm,
you feel comfortable in that role. Little things like leaving the business early, and oh, what will the team think if I'm leaving at 2:30? And they're like, does he actually do any work? And oh, I feel guilty about doing that. And I'm sure a lot of directors and owners go through that journey. But
yeah,
I think it comes down to the core beliefs and the stories you tell yourself about what you think it should be. And like you say, that you have to self-flagellate for so many years before you can enjoy success. Otherwise, you haven't properly earned it.
yep,
Um,
just
these are chips we carry, I think, and some of that inner work I think you've got to do because, I like the saying that the business is only a shadow of an institution is only a shadow of its leader.
yep,
So if you as a leader and a CEO don't grow, there's a risk that the business won't grow as well. So
absolutely,
whilst you're doing all your strategic stuff, your finance, sales, marketing, all your by the book business stuff, I think you do have to go on an inner journey as well and do the coaching work and whatever's needed to elevate yourself up the rungs of the ladder.
absolutely.
Otherwise, you risk bottlenecking the business. You've got to grow and you've got to believe and and it's not easy. Asks a lot of you.
Absolutely. We use a similar phrase, which is life's a mirror,
Mm,
and our business is a mirror of its owners.
yeah,
So if the business isn't where it should be, we've got to look at the owner first because that
yeah,
it's an image, it's a mirror of what we do, which is, as you have rightly said, is not always easy and not always fun because it is
no,
about taking ownership. Why isn't the business developing? Well, why am I not developing to be
yeah,
able to help the business develop? So
yeah,
it's a tough one. So we have a certain definition in Action Coach for a true business, Gavin. I'm keen to get your thoughts on it. And
yeah.
our definition of business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without its owners. And
Okay.
we could put can in there because, like I say, if you absolutely love what you do, it's not like you have to not work, but it's the principle of moving more and more towards it's not dependent on its owners. What
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, agree. I agree. I think the principle of it being able to run effectively, make money, all the rest of it without the owner, founder there. Not that I'm the founder, obviously, in this case, but I think he's right. I think that's the right way to address it. And I think a similar way of looking at it is running and shaping a business in a way that could be sold. It
Yeah,
is, even if you don't want to. It's kind of
yeah,
on the same page, really.
absolutely.
Um, I think you're trying to create a business which has an intrinsic value, it can run, and so if you were to sell it, you could pass that on without you necessarily following it, and the buyer would have something valuable which they could then build upon.
Yes,
I think is definitely the right way to think about it. We learned that off a previous NED who sat on our board, Elizabeth Gooch, who was brilliant. Um, and it's an adage that we talk about now is, run the business as if it could be sold. And
yes,
and that's everything. That's your commercials, it's your governance, it's the way um it's your client success strategy, your colleague retention strategy, the whole lot. Um and it's a good way to think about it. And I think it's very similar to the definition you posed there of being able to run without the founder.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it is the two key benefits. One you've identified is it's much more saleable and therefore much more valuable
Yeah.
if you wanted to, but
Yeah.
even if you don't, and probably it's 50-50 the people I work with. Some have sold,
Yeah.
some have retained. Retaining it creates passive income, so we don't have to do it, and it really shines through how much you enjoy what you do. So it's not like it's a barrier, but again, but ultimately for most people it becomes something that we can ultimately go, well, I'd rather do something else. Whether and
Yeah.
therefore this it gives a choice. But as I say, if you run it as if it's going to be sold, then it does very significantly improve the inner workings of a business and reduce the dependence on people like its owners. If we've taken them out the proposition, so we don't become the bottleneck to growth as you identified.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a win-win, like you say, because you're then in the privileged realm of choices,
Yep.
which I think
Yes.
is amazing. But also, Chris, we don't know what's around the corner.
Yep.
So, a severe illness, a death, anything could be just around the corner for any of us. So
Yep.
you've got to act in a way where the business has some sustainability
Yep.
past yourself,
Yep.
because for the benefit of every other stakeholder that now relies upon it.
Yeah.
I think that's a matter of good governance and good leadership. So, for many reasons, I think it's the right way to look at the business and view it
Brilliant.
and
Yeah,
act.
it's a really good point, and not thought of that about that in as much detail. And so, Gavin, looking forward, then, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
Yeah, well, definitely lots of challenges coming up. I want to grow the business we, with the board, Tracy and Charlotte, we want to grow the business, but it's as it's always been, not at all costs. It
Yep.
has to be in the right way, in accordance with the right values. How we get there is as important as getting there.
Yes, 100% agree.
Um, so that's important to us. But we do have this lighthouse in the distance of, the 10 million revenue, maybe 80 to 100 people that would be needed to sustain that amount of revenue, depending on how much automation you include. Um, but we've mapped that out over a certain number of years, whether we
Brilliant.
grow at 10%, 15%, 20%. So we've got some visibility over, slower growth, high growth, medium growth, if you like, and
Yes.
how and it doesn't really matter how quickly we get there. We haven't got outside investors that we need to answer to, so we don't have to do it at a
Yeah.
certain pace. So it's about doing it in the right way,
Yeah.
um, being able to sustain the culture, the values, the heart. Um, on a personal level, at board level, and we're sort of emanating this out across the whole culture. We want the professional adventure of a lifetime. That's what we're aiming for. We
Oh, say that again. A
yeah,
professional adventure of a lifetime. Love that.
professional adventure of a lifetime. We want to, we want new experiences. We want to challenge ourselves in new arenas. We want to enjoy the people that we work with. We all want to grow and work, climb up the ladder and have this professional adventure. um, towards that kind of lighthouse vision over there, over whatever time it takes, doing it in accordance with the right values.
Love it.
So it's holding two things in our hands at the same time. One is an eternal gratefulness over where we're at now and everything
Yep.
we've achieved. And if it all ended tomorrow, we'd be delighted of what we've achieved and where we've come from and everything that we've done, whilst at the same time still wanting to grow, develop, see where
Yep.
we can take it. So it's a sort of gratefulness for today and where we're at and everything we've achieved, um, and but continuing to grow and strive for
Love
the
it.
future. Both things at the same time.
Love it. Love it. What a great philosophy. And I'm keen to know what you'd say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now. What would be your top tips?
If just starting out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think you've got to trust your instincts. Like you rightly said earlier, I don't think we can over glamorize entrepreneurship and starting a business. It
Yeah.
truly isn't for everyone. It's
Yeah.
really hard. It asks a lot of you. It requires a certain skill set, which truthfully not everyone's got. Um, so you have to be discerning about whether you're the right type of person. And I think you'll know that. You have to speak to people around you, take the relevant advice, etc. But if you think you are,
Yeah.
and you've got an instinct, then you've got to go for it. You've got to try because the cost of regret is high, isn't it? It's if you get to your deathbed and you never went for it, and I think the biggest regrets of the dying are I never went for it. I wasn't bold enough. Clearly, you don't want to put yourself at huge risk and risk the whole lot. But with a moderate amount of risk, if you feel like you're the right type of person to do it and your instinct is there, then you've got to give it a go, I think, because the cost of regret is too high.
Love it. Love it. That's said with some passion. And finally, and this might be the same advice, but what would be the best advice you give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that, Gavin?
Ooh, I'd probably say to 18-year-old me, be patient. You don't know everything. Um, um, trust your instinct. Probably those three things.
Love it.
I think when you're in your 20s, you're at risk. Oh, so let me not generalize. I was at risk of, you know, knowing everything. You do in your 20s, don't you? You already know it all. With every passing year, you realize how little you actually know,
Yep.
how much more there is
Yes.
to know, and that comes with maturity.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, be patient. Um, trust your instincts, and you start to trust those more as you go on, I think. And yeah, like I said before, I think the advice I give, I suppose, is do what I did, is spend 20 to 30. I think that decade is
Mm.
experimenting, trying, learning, reading, listening. Because I know you'll know, Chris, when you're a father, it's hard to tell someone who's not had the family yet how much time you truly have.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So you've just got to use that. I mean, I look back now and I think I should have been speaking Spanish, Italian, and German, be in the best shape of my life, massive friendship circle, traveled up to over 50 countries. I didn't do all of that, but you realize how much time you actually had
Yep.
um,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yes, and
that
sleep, I
decade.
think, is the other one about parenting, isn't it? You can't explain how you can manage on such little sleep. It's
Yeah,
the and then what's interesting, I don't know, it sounds like yours are really young, is not really realizing that point at which you've got your sleep back because it sort of just happens over time. You know, they stop waking you up at 5 stupid o'clock or whatever. And
yeah,
I think the one we remembered, for you to spark something there. I think it was the first Christmas when they didn't run in at 5:30 in the morning.
yes.
And you got to that point where they're coming in and you go, no, they start to go, you go another hour, and they go away and come back in another hour. And then eventually you have to wake them up, which is nice. But
Oh,
that's
we're
the
not
thing.
there yet. We're
No,
not
no.
there yet, as you can tell by my eyes, probably.
Gavin, it's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you, and there's so much wonderful things in there. I hope a lot of people get to watch this interview. But for anyone that's interested in getting in touch with you or Howarths, what would be the best ways of doing that?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it too. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Um, best ways are our website, but I'd probably say LinkedIn, my LinkedIn and my colleagues' LinkedIn.
Cool.
If there was any interest whatsoever in us, where we're going, what we're doing, the services we provide, and the difference we make for clients, I would go on LinkedIn because we use it a lot, we post a lot.
Great.
Quietly follow us for a while, and and see what you think of the type of stuff we put out there. And like we said before, to stay on theme, if you think we're a values fit, that you like the cut of our jib, what we talk about, how we go about things, then yeah, conversation would be great.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, look, it'd be great to swing by another 6, 12 months and just see what next stages are. But for today, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers.